I kind of had a 5-year plan. I kind of visualised where I wanted to be.
You had a 5-year plan at what age, 17?
Yeah, I did. A great leadership team around me, and it really motivated me to kind of make the jump and start Tecnologika. And one of these little rules that I taught myself was never start a business in an industry that you don't understand.
What's your view on dress code? Are we going to have now people just actually, I will wear what I want, whenever I want?
It's funny you mentioned dress codes because I was really hoping you'd wear a flowery shirt. I can't believe you haven't worn it.
I know.
There's this talk of glass ceilings, right? And I've mentioned it earlier on, embrace it. Embrace the glass ceiling, get as close to it as possible.
Welcome to the Channel Chat podcast. Hello, I'm Marc Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have the privilege of Joseph Castle, the CEO of Tecnologika, in the studio. Live in the studio, Joe.
Live and direct.
How are we doing?
I'm good. The privilege is all mine.
Oh, no, thanks for coming in. Because actually, the listeners won't know this, that we met, in fact, you jumped on me nearly in a pub near the Arsenal game, didn't you? Because I literally looked across the bar and then you looked at me and I thought, who's this guy looking at me? I thought you were going to come and start a fight with me for a minute. So it was all scary. It's like, so that's how we met.
I saw the look of fear in your eyes. I did. I saw it. It's a big guy peering over you. I was like, are you Mark?
Yeah.
Right?
So that was funny. So Arsenal and boxing. So we have got something in common, actually.
We do indeed.
And the IT channel.
So we met the day after the AJ fight, didn't we? So we both discovered that we went to the AJ fight.
Yeah.
Obviously not together. And then we found out we're both Arsenal fans. So we've got good taste. So yeah.
So a Arsenal fan and a boxing fan started his IT channel career at Micro Warehouse, didn't he? So tell me about your career and how it sort of progressed. Because you started your career there and then you moved to the likes of SCC and Ultima after that.
Yeah, indeed. So I think I was about 17 when I started working for Micro Warehouse. First job, was at college, didn't know what I wanted to do. AS levels, was it uni or do I build a career? And to be completely honest with you, I saw a friend who worked in the IT channel, and we spoke. My dad was into computers and a bit of a geek at home, so I enjoyed technology per se, and I decided to leave my AS levels and go straight into IT. So it was a bit of a bold move. I don't think my parents were too happy about it.
You left during halfway through?
Yeah, I did. So I finished AS and then I went straight into IT. Started at the bottom. Worked as a sort of a sales associate, sales support. And then, to be honest with you, I started Tecnologika when I was 22. Time flies. So I really only had 5 years to get to that position in terms of learning. If you think most people leave uni, 20, 21?
21.
I had a massive head start and some practical experience in business and in industry. So I went from Micro Warehouse, sales support, became an account manager, and I moved to sort of business development roles within SCC. I got promoted to that position there, and then at Ultima. So it was quite a lot of hard work in a short space of time. I kind of had a 5-year plan. I kind of visualised where I wanted to be. And
you had a 5-year plan at what age, 17?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I've always been quite focused and quite driven. And I knew that I had potential. I just didn't know how I would use it. I had a lot of self-belief. That hasn't changed, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, like anything, right? You set out in a direction and then you go off a different tangent and opportunities present themselves in life. So yeah, I mean, at Ultima, it was a great organisation for me to work in because full of technical people, great minds, and I could really get under the hood of what customers' problems were and talk to them about technology. So I was quite successful as a salesperson there. I had a great leadership team around me, and it really motivated me to kind of make the jump and start Tecnologika. Yeah.
Now, I'm not being big-headed when I say this, but I don't often meet many people that have started a business before me because I started at 23, but at 22 you started. What made you start a company at 22, especially in IT reseller or partner?
It sounds insane. It
does.
It is insane, right? I think I had the realisation that, I mean, I was quite successful as a sales guy. I went from earning zero money to quite a lot of money at a young age. I actually went to IB for twice in 1 month. How crazy is that?
Brilliant.
Because I had such a poor time. It was in July. I went the first part of July and went back at the end, and I was like, and it was the only time I looked at my bank balance as a sales guy. I was like, wow, I've still got money. Right? And then I thought, do I want to live like some third-rate footballer and be frivolous, or do I actually want to take life seriously and invest in my future? And I thought to myself, look, I'm young enough. I've got enough years in the industry, enough knowledge, enough of a network to fail. I didn't have any commitments, didn't have a mortgage, and I didn't have any kids, right? So, I had enough. I had the confidence that if I...
Where were you living then? Were you living at home?
No, do you know what? I left home around the same age, around 17, completely by my own choice, and I just wanted to head into the big city and find my fortune. But yeah, no, I was probably renting a room in Ealing or somewhere like that, right? And then I moved into East London when we started Tecnologika in Shoreditch. But so where was I? So where were we? We digressed. It was, why did I start at Tecnologika at 22? I had the confidence, I had the self-belief, and I knew that if I failed, then I'll be employable. And I just thought, look, I'm young enough to do it, and well, what's the point of just kind of living for the here and now, living in the moment? Let's see if we can do it. And I always wanted to try. I've always worked for good companies, but I've always felt that being a young person in the industry, you don't really have a voice, right? And you're always effectively looked at as a novice, even if you're doing some good numbers. Yeah. And I always had ways that I thought I could do things differently. So why not try? I must say here though, I did have some support. So my co-founder Nick Jordan, he's 12 years my senior. He was on the technical side, right? And like all good adventures, they start with a beer. I think he just got made redundant around 2007, 8, around then. He was evaluating what he wanted to do. We had a couple of pints and we were like, well, why don't we do this together? And I think having, a maturer person to help me be the kind of the ideas guy and the driving force of it, someone to just kind of maybe take care of some of the operational stuff, was a really good incubation period for me at a young age. But hey, we haven't looked back since. Because
that was really the sort of the global recession as well at that point. So he made redundant maybe because of that, and
probably.
That's a tough time to start a business. Though, wasn't there no apprehension from you thinking, actually, I'm going in? Most companies are downsizing, and you're starting a company.
So, firstly, one of my rules, I used to read lots of books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and there were so many little books that I would absorb around business at the time. And one of these little rules that I taught myself was never start a business in an industry that you don't understand, and get as much knowledge as you can. And as a sales guy, I had stumbled upon a part of financial services that was really interesting. It was growing really quickly. And I was trying to understand, what are these guys actually doing? How does it all work? And then you start working with different customers. Your name gets spread about. Joe's the guy that can help you sort these problems out. A lot of US customers are moving over to the UK, and there were these banks. I'm like, well, we're in a recession here, and they were setting up infrastructure and data centers here. So these guys were algorithmic traders or prop traders or proximity traders, and they were effectively, if you've seen The Big Short, betting on the market going one way or another, that's what they're effectively doing, but using algorithms to do it. And I guess the recession happened because of sort of poor practice in the financial service industry. Bear Stearns collapsed, Lehman's collapsed, but there was a birth of a lot of exciting, young, new ideas, tech trading firms. And with a little bit of, I didn't go to university, right? So really this is my own research and a little bit of business practice. We set out as that to be the market that we focused on, and to understand their problems, their use cases, and help them build the data centers. And it was really kind of quite niche, networking, server storage, high performance. We got some great relationships with sort of Intel and Solarflare and Arista in the early days. These kind of vendors that were kind of a little bit. Everyone knows who Intel are. They make chips, right? But we decided to work directly with them to build our own bespoke server solutions to the financial service guys. So we had a real niche. I think if we were selling laptops or PCs at 3%, it would have been a struggle to make through. But we had a bit of a differentiator in the early days, and that, it really helped.
Yeah, because that was quite in those days as well. Not many people were doing much niche out there, were there? There was a lot of broadline resellers selling laptops and desktops at
box shifters,
and still a lot of out there now still doing pretty well.
And you know what? We've tried to become more of a box shifter, more of a traditional solutions provider as we've got older. We're 13 now. in November. So we will be celebrating our birthday, but we've tried to be more broadline as we've grown older, and to appeal to more. So it's actually an art form to do it really well. So I'm not going to look down on those firms, but it's helped us to be focused, to be niche, and to be more technology focused, because it's kind of then given us a lot of skill and a lot of knowledge internally and a lot of processes, because our customers are global, right? So we learned how to ship internationally, to we scaled the company globally very quickly. We set up a presence in the US, a little shop out in Asia as well, and obviously with Brexit we now have got a presence in Europe. But it really gave us that kind of agility to work around our customers, to get understand customers' processes and the compliance side of it. So great learning process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Running a business anyway. Yeah.
So let's bring it up to date. So what would you say now is the sort of biggest challenge you're facing in the current climate? We've just had a global pandemic. Without being distasteful, it's been pretty successful for a lot of IT companies, especially if you've been remote working and you've been selling that technology. What's the challenges you've been facing as a sort of small business in the current climate?
I think that's such a really big question, because I think a lot of the challenges that we're facing are going to be what the whole industry are facing. And that is really down to, we haven't had petrol for weeks in this country, right? So, logistics, transportation, goods coming into port has been a challenge. I'm no kind of political commentator or anything, but, something tells me, the whole process with Brexit may have something to do with it. So stuff coming in and out of the country has been a challenge. So lead times, effectively, manufacturing at these manufacturers, the manufacturing process has been delayed. So there's been a shortage in raw materials such as copper for heat sinks, and the semiconductor manufacturers. They're even affecting electric cars, right? I've been to a friend of mine, and his car's been delayed 3 months because they can't get enough chips to put in these cars. So it's not just us. I think there's a lot of patient customers out there waiting for stock, waiting to upgrade their infrastructure. But that's the issue. It's supply chain related, and I think it's a real kind of macro issue globally. We're all affected by it, but that's our biggest challenge. We've got a big back order. We've got customers that want to work and want to roll out their projects, deploy their new infrastructure, but getting a hold of it is a challenge. So
really? That must be frustrating, isn't it?
Oh, it's so frustrating. But at least we've got customers that want to work with us, right? So we've got to be grateful. But yeah, as you said, you mentioned the pandemic there, and you said it's quite distasteful to say that potentially we've prospered. Yeah. We are the backbone of every industry, data or their IT infrastructure, whether they're working from home or not. And every company that's out there still had to survive and had to get their workforce to collaborate and to communicate, and they've had to maintain their systems. So you could say distasteful, but I think we are trying to make sure that the business community operates. So we're certainly doing our bit. But we look at the pandemic as a learning process for sure. We've learned a hell of a lot.
What about you personally? So there's no rule book on the pandemic, and there was no the disaster recovery manual went out the window. But how have you coped with it personally over the last 18 months? Because there's no doubt about it, running a business during a pandemic, whether it's going well or not, is going to be super stressful anyway.
I've got a few more grays. Yeah. Can't see them this close, but I do. I have a few more grays. Okay, so I try to educate myself personally, and I'm going to go to work here, but I joined a CEO board just to be around different leaders in different industries and understand what kind of processes they were running. That was quite interesting. It gave me, some ideas. I've got a 2.5-year-old daughter she's just incredible. The apple of my eye. But so it gave me an opportunity to really appreciate, the happy things in life. But we did have a breakup as well. So I think COVID has accelerated a lot of decisions in people's lives. It makes you really question happiness and what we all do it for. The Great Reset has been a term that's been thrown around. I think if you haven't come out of this process with a bit of gratitude and a little bit more drive in understanding yourself a little bit more and and how quickly it all could be taken away from you,
absolutely,
then you haven't learned anything. But yeah, it's been a challenge. I can't say it's all been a smooth sailing process personally. I'm sure it's been challenging for everyone, but I've certainly been on the hard end of the X stick, put it that way. But.
And has that, Joe, affected your future plans for the business? Because you said about the Great Reset and being more grateful and rethinking and what happens is that affected what your future plans are for the business?
No, not at all. If anything, it's kind of reaffirmed. So really fortunate. So at our 10th birthday, it's weird to say that, right? Our 10th birthday. I had a look at the business and felt that it was too dependent on me in certain areas, and I really wanted to kind of reinforce some leaders within the company. And I hired this guy called Marc, who ex BNP, great, really knowledgeable as an FD. He helped us plan and model where we want to go over the next 5 years, from reinvestments to just visualizing the growth of what we want to have as a business. And I've got no financial planning. We've got accountants and we've got some advisors, but really someone with your best interest at heart was one of the best things we ever did. And we set out just before COVID. We set out a 5-year plan of where we want to get to. We had some crazy goals, some acquisitions and bits and pieces in there, but really it was about kind of sustainability, growing year on year, reinvesting. And we didn't furlough anyone at COVID, right? So we didn't lose any staff. We hired a few people. So I was quite proud of that, because lots and lots of people got rid of a lot of guys, right? Or they just furloughed them, and they're kind of living on paying their bills and running a house.
Keep the lights on time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we didn't, but yeah, in terms of the future, we had to be more efficient in the way that we we run the business financially, in terms of age debt and bits and pieces, and really work very closely with some of our customers. But we were already planning, how we were going to effectively grow the business. That hasn't changed. We did set our forecast down slightly. We took 20% off just to kind of factor in the kind of downtime, and I think the recovery period took a little bit longer than we thought it would. We were okay to start with, and then there's been a period of 6 to 8 months where things slowed down a bit, but it's really buoyant. I think Q2 going into Q3, we're calendar year, so our year end is end of December, and I think we've had a great Q3, and Q4 is already started amazingly well for us. We had our best ever quarter in Q3. So
fantastic.
Really
fantastic. Long may that continue.
Thank you.
So, as a former salesperson, running your own business. Now, as I said, I'm a former salesperson. I'm not a former salesperson. I am a salesperson running a business. But how much do you miss the day-to-day selling yourself? Because you mentioned that the business was quite dependent on you at one stage.
Yeah. I think it always will be when you start a business, and then you've got to try and build a leadership team that can kind of run with that vision and build on that vision, right? In terms of selling, to be honest with you, I don't think that ever goes. You want to be selling your ideology, your philosophies to your team, to your staff. You want to be the person that's, the first ambassador of your business when you're talking to clients, sharing, understanding their problems. And I think it's really powerful when you're speaking to customers and you want to hear what they have to say. And if they know that you own the business, it's like, how often do they get a chance to speak to the guy that owns the company, and actually be listened to and have that impact their decision-making process? So to answer your question, I would class myself as not only a salesperson, a team maker. Sometimes I take the bins out as well, right? But you wear many hats. Definitely still like getting involved in solving problems for our sales team, and they come to me for very specific niche things. It might be, some kind of, when I had to fly to, it sounds like a chore, but it really wasn't. Just before COVID, I had to fly out to Brazil to help a customer set up a supply chain out there, because the whole import process is quite a challenge. You're paying effectively double the amount of goods on tax. So I do get involved in projects that are quite exciting, and I may have chose that one as well because it was Brazil. But so I'm still at the heart of trying to add value to the team if I can.
Would you say your strength is selling them? Because I remember when I set up the company 20 years ago, I was a recruiter. That's what I did. I never professed to be a businessman, etc. I don't profess to be a businessman now, quite frankly. But then I hired when I was hiring more people in the business that had skills that I didn't. So part of me was a bit scared to do that. I actually didn't want to do that. I quite liked having the control. Do you have? You mentioned earlier about the finance director, and he had more sort of different skill set around operations. Have you had to sort of let a bit of control go, because it starts off as your baby and it starts getting to an adolescent child and grows up?
Indeed. Well, I mean, it starts off as your baby, as you say, and you become an employee of your own idea, right? And it also becomes a house for everyone else, or a home that everyone else that works there. And having leaders that know more than you is, I mean, that's an old adage in business, right? Employ people that know more than you. I won't be the first to say it. So it's been empowering, really, to have big ideas, big brains, and good advisors around me and I don't know it all. I won't profess to. So certainly having people that I can learn from as well is great. Yeah.
I recently tuned in to watch you online at the Computer Centre's Neil Hall and Cisco's Dominic Pearce when you discussed ethnic diversity. And that was a sort of CRN. It wasn't a podcast, it was an online forum. Now, I know this is sort of quite a rangy question, but how do you feel the technology industry needs to adapt to get a more diverse?
How long have we got?
I know it's a big question. I know it's a big question, but
so firstly, that was a really progressive thing that those guys did. I salute them because, being middle-aged, middle class, and white, if I can say that. I'm mixed race, so I can say that. I'm not being racist. It's a challenge to talk about something that you don't necessarily have any expertise in, but there's a desire to have the conversation, have the debate. So I salute them. I was honoured to be a part of it. I hope it came across well. It was a bit long for everyone to, if you didn't see it live, hopefully you can get a chance to watch it. So hats off to them. I mean, how can we, make change? Look, you look around the world and, it's not very fair. Whether it's male, whether it's to do with, your preference of sexuality, whether it's, the colour of your skin in business, it's dominated by a certain demographic. And, we're not going to change that overnight. And I think that's not the goal. I'm more of an equalist, right? I believe that, diversity and inclusion should be about everyone. It should be about creating cultures that everyone can prosper in. And I'm quite passionate about that. So, the fact that conversation's happening is superb. And how we're going to change it, look, I think it's about having the conversation to start with. Looking internally, reflecting, how can we do things better? Creating cultures that you would like to be in if you were a young grad coming into, planning for the future, not just being reactive about problems of today. So, I mean, there's loads of tactics and strategies. Get some external advice. Speak to someone that might know more than you. Coming back to what we were saying before, it's not going to happen overnight. Change doesn't happen overnight. We want evolution, not a revolution. We want to be able to really have something sustainable. So all I can say is I don't know the answers. Start by understanding your own problems. Get some advice. We had a lady to come in and a culture consultant. It sounds ridiculous, right? But
that job would never have existed 10 years ago.
I know, but
if you just told me about a culture consultant, they'd be like,
mate,
what are you talking about?
I know, it's ridiculous. I can't believe I signed off on it, but it was a great decision. She's superb at her job. Changing, even from a marketing perspective, changing your language, changing your tone, changing some of your job specs, making things just more level for everyone, and doing surveys with your staff completely anonymous so they can actually speak freely about their problems. If you don't listen, then you can't give answers. You can't provide the answers and the solutions. And I think we all think we know it all. That's the problem. Really, the information's there for us to do. All we do is listen, right, and use the facts in front of us. So it's been a good, interesting process getting. Her name's Kate Wood. So shout out to Kate Wood. But she's great at her job, and she's brought a lot of value into the organisation.
Yeah, I've spoken to Kate. Yeah, nice girl.
Small world.
Do you think you've come from you describe yourself as a mixed race man?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know many owners of businesses that are from mixed race. So do you have to see yourself as a bit of not a mentor, but someone, an inspiration to people to actually sort of start companies? Because I was actually thinking before you came, I'm thinking, I know lots of leaders working for companies, but I actually don't know a mixed race owner.
Yeah, I mean, say black, because I think the world will probably see me as black, right?
Yeah.
So I'm proud to own my the melanin in my skin. But I am mixed race. My dad was actually Ukrainian and a bit Dutch. My mum's Jamaican, so that's where I get the hype from, the Dutch. So really diverse, really eclectic, and I kind of see myself as somebody that. But I've never seen colour for myself as a barrier. I've always just worked hard and tried to try to do the best I can with my skill sets and my abilities. But I do see a lot of people do, and I do think there are glass ceilings. And I if I can inspire people to, I'm not an activist per se. You won't see me in a protest. But, I think we all can inspire in our own ways. And if someone's watching this and thinks, wow, that guy looks like me, he's running a business, he spoke about international projects, he's got an international company, then that's, part of the job, the mission achieved, really, just helping the next generation to dream. Because that's all I did when I started. I had a dream. I thought I could do things differently. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to make that reality. But there's a lot of work to do. So that, we're 13 years in and I'm only 34, so I've got some miles on the road to go.
So do you see you've got a responsibility to have an inclusive work environment for your own company now because of that? So and Joe, it's a massive topic at the moment.
Do you? Let's ask this question.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. If someone asked me that 2 years ago, I'd have said no. Yeah. I wouldn't have thought of it.
It's an honest answer, mate.
I really wouldn't have thought of it, because I actually had about 4 or 5 years ago. I had, and this is going to put me in such a bad light, but I'll say it. I had a girl working for me that had 2 children, and she used to rush out the door at 5:30, dead on, to get her children at quarter to 6. I never said to her once, "Why don't you just go at 20 past?" I just let her struggle at 5:30 because I didn't want to change the environment and change the culture. So I never really thought about it before. Now, through this podcast and obviously interviewing leaders like yourself, I'm hearing about it all the time, and it has made me think, actually, have we got an inclusive workforce? And again, being completely honest with you, if you come back 2 or 3 years ago, we were quite a boys' club. We had quite a drinking culture.
It's often the case.
We were very much similar to that, and to change that has been quite challenging. We have now got 3 females in the business, which is great, and we're getting more ethnic people, which is fantastic, ethnic minorities. But honestly, that's been a conscious effort. We would unconsciously have probably hired similar people who like going down the pub, etc.
I think we all do. I think we all try and hire people that we get on with, and part of being in IT, in the IT channel, your customers appreciate, first thing, they want to have a conversation and know that you've got a rapport with them, right? So you want to work with people that are similar to yourself. So I get that, and well done. I mean, without sounding condescending or patronising, it's a big realisation, and it's good to kind of actually make a change. Coming back to our business, that's really honest for you to say that. That's difficult. But do I feel a need to be diverse? Absolutely, because look at me. I'm from, I'm a mixture of the world by my own creation. We're in London, so it's quite diverse. We're in Tower Hamlets, which is a really diverse neighbourhood anyway, near the city. But there's so much going on, so much life, so much culture. And I just want to create an environment that anyone can come to and feel like they can prosper. It's not a boys' club. I've worked in boys' clubs before, and I've never really fitted in. Hence why I left the boys' clubs at 22 to create my own little version of what I think a utopia in the IT industry is. So, there's no. That's how you're educated. That's where you've worked. You've worked in those organisations. Because
it's an unconscious thing as well.
Indeed,
I think you end up with an environment. You think, actually, are we all sort of similar? Are we all doing the same thing? And it's not consciously you're doing it. It's unconscious. Do you think when going back to when you said about your dream at 17, do you think? And you mentioned glass ceilings. Did that resonate? That you're actually thinking, I need to start my company because I've got that background, or did that not even come in? Because
so I've always been given support and encouragement and been told that I'm good at my job, even when I didn't, kind of fake it.
Even if you weren't.
You kind of fake it till you make it, right? You pretend that you know it all as a young guy. You walk in a nice sharp suit and you pretend that you're really, but really you're like, oh God. I guess you could call it imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, there's a syndrome for everything these days, but I think that's natural when you're trying to build a career for yourself. When people are giving you a pat on the back and saying, oh, you're good, and some people saying you're really lucky. Well, you're not lucky. It's a mathematical process. You make more calls, you have more meetings, you have more customers, you have more opportunities, right? So you create your own luck. But I've always been given support and I've always been given encouragement. And I don't personally feel like my skin colour has ever been a detriment to my success per se. But others do. Coming back to that, and and if they do, let's do something about it. But you mentioned it shouldn't be about skin colour. It should be about as you said. There is probably a bit of a paranoia hiring a woman of a certain age because she might want to have kids one day, right? There probably is, if someone does have children, what time do you have to pick them up from school? As you said, there is an unconscious bias out there, and I think if you can create a culture and environment where, and I think working from home has really helped, right? Because it's made people actually say, well, look at their teams, look at their employees. They're actually already productive, even though they're at home, and they're probably saving an hour, 2 hours travel time a day. And a lot of them work harder because, I do calls at 8 o'clock in the morning when I'm at home because I'm not, sometimes I do it in the car as well, but, a lot of them do work harder. So changing, not being draconian about that people are going to skive during the day if they're not up for it, whether they're sitting at the desk or they're not, right?
Yeah.
If you give people the freedom to be adults, to work hard when they need to work hard. And I'm not saying we'll have flexi hours, but to be adults, right? We're all grown ups. You will get more productivity out of them. I believe that. So yeah.
Because again, I'm going to swerve onto a slightly different subject now because remote working, flexible working has been forced on us now. Again, I'm quite old-fashioned. I do like people in the office. I think it generates more collaboration of ideas, etc.
Same.
But I also do see that people need flexibility. What's your view on that people? Because I'm now seeing candidates demanding flexibility because, quite frankly, they don't want to do the travelling. They just don't want to come in the office. Almost bored. I'm going to say I'm going to be probably shot down for that. Boring because they just got a bit more lazy and they don't want to come in as much. What's your view on that? Because can the culture now go too much towards the candidate where they say, do you know what? Unless it's flexible working, I can take my dog for a walk. I can come and do the gardening, and I can leave at 4 o'clock. I don't want to come and work for you. How would you approach someone if someone comes to you and said, look, I've got a list of demands, Joe, before I come to you? Well,
so just on your point, right? Has it gone too far one way? I absolutely think that it has impacted all employers because their competitors are offering it, so they kind of have to, otherwise they're at a disadvantage because the benefits are no longer the same, right? So I'm not saying it's gone too far one way, but it has made an impact and a change, so everyone's offering it now. Personally, I don't mind people working from home a couple of days a week. I think, as you say, collaboration is important, socialization is important, discussion, going into a meeting room, face to face. And at the start of the pandemic, I'm sure everyone's seen this, because it wasn't a normal, a regular way of working at the time. You would have people probably eating their cereal, maybe in a dressing gown, and then we had to kind of say, guys, you act like you're still in the office, because you're still working here, and that's changed now. It was completely new at the time, right? And we were in a pandemic; everything was up in the air, but. I do think that it's got to a balance for us where I trust everyone that's worked from home. I don't question whether they're working or not. And I think that, as long as you're, what we try not to do is have regular working from home days. So, you can book time off. You could probably work twice a week if you want to. Most guys work from home once a week. And we find them really productive. We don't really monitor the number of calls they make, but you could tell if someone's online or not, right? You could tell if someone's busy. So yeah, I think it works for us. Moving forward in all vacancies, we will have some flexibility. However, when you're onboarding, you're in the office. So during the onboarding period, you've got to be around your peers. So that's a rule. So yeah, you can work from home. You can't work from home every Wednesday or every Friday or every Monday. You know, book it off. Make sure it's all booked in properly through our little HR portal. But yeah, or in your calendar. Just when you're on board, when you're onboarding, for new guys, you're in the office.
What's your view on dress code? Because I'll give an example. Today, and it's funny you're here today, but this morning I went to Insight's offices, walked around, lovely office, fantastic office, really collaborative.
Yeah.
Guy walks up in trainers, shorts, and a t-shirt. He's like a running gear sort of thing. And Jill, who I actually saw there, she said to me, which I implored them for doing it. They said, "Well, look, while the pandemic was on, when you were at home, you were dressing in what you want. So can we enforce them dressing when they come to the office?"
Yeah.
And I sat there and I just thought, yeah, I suppose you can't. And I wasn't knocking him because I thought, you know what, wear what you want. But he was wearing running gear or shorts and a t-shirt and trainers, and I just thought, actually, are we going to? And I'm not saying people are going to turn up in their pajamas, Joe. But are we going to have now people just actually? I will wear what I want, whenever I want, and I'll work for when I want, wherever I want.
It's funny you mentioned dress codes because I was really hoping you'd wear a flowery shirt. I can't believe you haven't worn it.
I know.
That is the brand, the Sumner brand. So I'm disappointed. Why did you wear a white shirt today?
It's a long story, but a previous girlfriend had now said I was looking a bit like a bit of a clown, so I had to get rid of them. But now she's gone, so maybe I'll have to get them back.
Mate.
So she ripped them all out of my wardrobe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, mate.
Got to get them back. So now
So she wasn't a keeper.
No, she made me wear white shirts.
And you're wearing white shirts, and then you've lost. Oh, mate, you've got to get.
The image.
You've got to get some florals in.
I lost the image. Yeah.
So you've actually reminded me of a really funny story. And I shouldn't really be saying this because it's quite embarrassing on my behalf. When I worked at Ultima, I kind of hybrid work between our city office, which was in Bank on Cornhill at the time, and the HQ, which is in Reading. And so the ex-owner, I know they've been bought out by a sort of VC group, a guy called Marc Sumner, great guy. I love Max. He's just a great personality. He's really big into his horses and into Blackburn, and he's a lovely man. Really got on with him. But anyway, didn't get on with him this day. So it was my birthday. I remember the day. It was July the 1st. You're not getting any more information out of me. Not my full date of birth.
You've already told us you're 34.
Well, no, you're going to ask for my mother's maiden name now. You're going to be trying to, clone my bank accounts. But I went into the office. I think I was working a half day. Actually, I think I had the day off, but I was going to pick something up. That was it. I was going to pick something up from the office, and Max had just been coming out. And I was wearing, in the city, some shorts and a t-shirt going into the office. And Max looked at me and was like, didn't say anything, just almost pretended that he did. And bear in mind, we're talking 2008, right?
Like, what are you doing, basically?
He was like, you're in the city dressed like that, and they banned everyone from casual attire at the time because so I ruined it for everyone. And I wasn't even working, I was just popping in and popping out. So, and he was a great guy, but the culture always used to be dress for business. You're in the city, dress like you mean business. Personally, I always want to, I've always got blazers and now we're quite smart casuals, so wear shirts and chinos or whatever it is. You can wear a suit if you want to wear a suit. Be ready to do business, even if you're on a Teams call. But I do think the business attire has slightly changed. We're not wearing pinstripe suits and tight up ties anymore, right? So as long as you look professional and you feel confident, you're going to do your job, then wear it.
But what if the person that comes for an interview with you is, for instance, wearing running gear? I'm not saying
that is just poor planning, right, and poor preparation.
But I don't know if he had a meeting today.
A little rule: you should always be more overdressed, right, than underdressed, right, because you never know who your audience is.
Do you still think that exists though? Because now
it's one of my personal rules. I know I'm pretty casual today, but I mean,
but you're still looking at a jacket, and for the listeners, you're still in the jacket, smart top and trousers.
Yeah.
But if someone comes for an interview with you, I'm not saying them in their pajamas, but in real casual clothes, would that affect your decision on hiring them?
First impressions count, don't they? Right? Let's be real. So you want to put your best foot forward. Would it after we spoke? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on what came out of their mouth. But you're going to think, well, actually, I try and have a half an hour interview. So my interviews are the final interviews. I try and meet everyone, and they've obviously been hired. We do, typically. 3-stage interview process. I know we're going to do some work together as well, but that's typically how I work, and I'm the final one, right? So I'm half an hour, and it's kind of getting to know them as a person. I like to ask them a couple of trick questions, but nothing too kind of surprising. But if they're coming to an interview with a guy that effectively owns a business, and you're dressed and running, that's just terrible preparation. So I wouldn't be impressed. But let's face it, if they're going to probably work in our warehouse, then they might not want, think about wearing a suit. So you've got to put that into context as well. Depends on the role.
Yeah, and by the way, listeners, I didn't know the role of this guy. He was just in the reception.
What if he was a courier? What if he was a bike courier?
He was working there. He was working there.
Okay.
But what I did think was, I actually applauded them for it, because I actually did think, do you know what? I have probably got unconscious bias. Actually,
to floral shirts,
to white shirts now, Joe. But to people that maybe dress smarter, I tend to dress smarter myself. So when I look at someone, I do make an unconscious judgment potentially. But I was actually thinking, if you've got an environment now where come as you want, dress as you want, etc., is that a good thing? I don't know. For me, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure, because if people in my company, if they turn up in running gear, would I mind? I suppose I wouldn't mind, but I would look at them thinking, "What are you doing?" Because just in case
he may have gone for a run, and they may be encouraging, better well-being and go out to the gym at your lunch,
which is great.
So that may have been the case. We don't know. We're both speculating here, aren't we? No one's ever come to our office in running gear. You can be casual if you want, So sometimes you've got a load of admin to do. You've got a lot of work, and look, we're not going to be too draconian about it. But if you're on the front line and you're a BDM and you're a client director, be prepared to do business, and I think that's how it should be. I'm not too kind of traditional, like wear a suit every day, but just be prepared to be successful.
If you went for a meeting now, What would you wear? What was your business attire? Because you mentioned it has changed.
Yeah.
I don't have ties anymore. I don't really have suits. I normally have jacket, smart jeans, and a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
But what would you wear to a meeting?
Pretty similar. I wear a shirt, a blazer,
you haven't today.
And chinos. Or
this is a meeting, Jay. You haven't worn a shirt.
It depends on my audience, mate. It depends on my audience. When I'm with somebody who's entertaining as you, I know I'm going to sweat a little bit, right? Because you're putting me under pressure. I'll wear a nice comfortable t-shirt. No. But look, I don't think I look too badly. If you do, then hey, it doesn't affect me. Look, you wear a jacket, chinos, and a shirt or a tee underneath it. I'm not that, I try not to think about it too much. It's do you look professional?
Yeah.
Are you focused? How you look shouldn't really be what's on your mind when you're going to work. It's not a fashion parade, right?
No.
Just be confident, be professional, and get your job done.
And I think that's great that it's that open now, because before I would have it where I'd have work clothes and I'd have going out clothes. Yeah. To be fair, now it's the same wardrobe pretty whether much. I'm in the work or going out.
Might change at winter, but a few more jumpers.
Yeah, but it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Let's move on for a minute. So let's go on to recruiting and hiring in general, because as a recruitment company, I want to find out from yourself what your views are in the market generally, and also for the listeners. So when interviewing, apart from their dress sense, how can a candidate really impress yourself?
I think that's a really easy question for me to answer. Interview me. As simple as that, right? Ask us questions. A job shouldn't just be about getting money. It shouldn't just be about an income. It should be about a career. You should be wanting to work somewhere, so you're investing in yourself. And I see your employers, the company you work for, as being you're there more than you're at your house, right? So just feeling the pressure, and it removes the pressure for the candidate as well. If you're going in there on an equal footing, thinking, well, actually, let me find out if you're right for me to work in. So I used to do that as a sales guy. If I was in an interview, I would ask them pressing questions, and we'd try to know, how am I going to develop? How will I fit in this culture, in this environment? So yeah, please ask us questions. Don't just do generic, kind of research. Oh, I found out that you do this, and this off the website.
Dull as well doing
that.
Yeah,
exactly. Actually get under the hood. Find out about the current team, the current dynamics. Who's successful, what's really well. How was your quarter? If you're how was your quarter last year? You probably go and do some research. Data's out there. It's not data available, but ask questions. And I want to know that if you're going to kind of work for us, you're actually thinking about the future, and you actually want to build a career within our organisation. That's for me the best way to approach it.
Do they have to have done any research? They've got a. It's not just you were started the next year. And
you guys do all the research for them these days anyway, don't you?
We don't prime them that much.
You give them a fact file, right? This is the organisation. This is what they do.
We'll have now because you've told me they've just got to interview you. If they interview Joe, listeners, basically you get a job. No,
well, I tell you, I'm a hard man to please. Trust me.
But do you think there should be any sort of standard research they should do?
I'm not in recruitment, so you're the expert on that one. But I'll be very disappointed if they didn't do any research. But look, it can be quite a stressful process. So you always have to put nerves into consideration because you're effectively being measured. But depends on the role. But if you're a sales guy, you're a BDM, or even you're an account manager, you're speaking to customers or prospects or new contacts that you never spoke to before. Every meeting you have is effectively an interview. You should be able to have a succinct conversation with someone you've never met before, because most people in those positions are probably quite people oriented, right?
Yeah.
And have that skill set. So, do your research. You should do your research when you're speaking to customers. It's a fundamental. It
Sales 101.
It goes without saying, right? If you haven't, then eject a seat. All right.
Do you know how many? You'd be surprised. Yes, we do tell candidates to do that, but you'd be surprised how many candidates turn up for interview and haven't done any research. So when the client actually says, "You've got any more questions for me?" they're like, "No, I haven't got any more questions," which is embarrassing. So again, the listeners, 5 bespoke questions every time you go for an interview, standard form.
There we go. Joe,
what is the funniest thing that's happened to you as a candidate or a hiring manager during an interview? Have you got any funny stories?
You put me on the spot here. Let me think. Give me a second. Okay, so we interviewed a lady for a finance manager position. So it's quite an important role. There is quite a lot of collaboration and working with our FD, working with our sales managers, helping to plan the business and helping to give reports and so on and so forth, right? And make sure bills get paid and bits and pieces.
Yep.
So she came into the interview and she sat down and this kind of relates to what you were saying earlier on. She was like, "Look, I've got a child," and I was like, "Oh, so have I. That's nice, isn't it?" And we had a little chat and she was screened, by the way. This is the final interview. She goes, "So just so you know, I might need to sort of just work. I think it was work from these days on these times so I can be with my child." I'm like, "Do you have childcare?" She goes, "Yes, but I want to be with my child." Okay, cool. So look, this interview lasted 15 minutes, right? It wasn't a half an hour interview. We knew we weren't right for each other. And then she went on to say, "Oh, so can you tell me more about my duties?" I'm like, "Oh, you've got the jobs." She was from a different planet, honestly. Do I have to speak to people and work with people? I really don't get on with people. And I was like, "What?
This is a human being.
This is a human being." And I was, and we gave, and because it was finance manager role, we went to one of the more generic recruiters, a Hayes or something like that, in the city, because that's what they do really well. I don't think we went back there, that's for sure. It was it's the worst interview. And I tell you what, if this young lady's watching, please take this as constructive feedback. I don't want to, ruin her confidence, but it just was a terrible interview. So I hope she's found a job, but maybe she sabotaged it. Maybe she didn't like us, but it was awful. It was terrible.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh dear. What advice would you give to an ambitious person that's looking to progress within your organisation or in the IT channel in general?
In life.
In life, yes. Yeah. Let's say life, yeah.
What advice would I give someone? So there's this talk of glass ceilings, right? And I've mentioned it earlier on. Embrace it. Embrace the glass ceiling. Get as close to it as possible. Learn from the leaders in an organisation. Try and be a sponge. You know, that doesn't mean you have to brown nose them and be this kind of like, you know, play the office politics game, but just understand how they think, understand how they make decisions, and you know, like, understand what they do wrong as well. I mean, I have to admit, if I look at how we started the company, I would always think what I didn't like, you know, by my former bosses, and it really helped me shape, it gave me the blueprint to try and be a good boss. So
exactly the same,
get as close to the glass ceiling as possible. And when the time's right, don't worry about. I mean, we work in a very well paid industry, all right. So don't be too greedy about, you know, like the short term finances. Learn your craft, learn from the leaders, learn from the people that are successful in your business, and in a few years' time, when the time's right, you know, if you put the work in and you're a sponge, I'm sure you can implement that to maybe get on the other side of the glass ceiling.
Absolutely, great advice. Now, on the flip side of that, I'm not saying these people aren't ambitious, but what advice would you give to people that, for whatever reason, they've had a number of jobs?
All the unlucky ones.
Or we call them the job hoppers. Everyone says to me, I don't want a job hopper, Mark, if they've had more than 6 months, a year, etc. But sometimes there's genuine reasons. What advice would you give to people like that?
Well, I mean, you know, they write their CVs first and foremost, so they should be aware how it's going to come across. Now, from my perspective, if they're being honest and they've put sort of like 5 jobs in 5 years, I don't understand why. So be honest and be transparent, because there are a number of reasons. It could be sort of redundant. I mean, you know, hearing that a salesperson's made redundant is never a good sign, because a sales guy should be bringing revenue in, right? You kind of get rid of the middle management type positions in downturns. But just articulating why. It could be not a fit, you didn't get on with your boss, you just didn't you clashed, didn't work, didn't feel at home in the culture. So explain why. But I would also say, you know, I'm not saying lie about your CV, but, you know, what's relevant to me when I look at a CV is probably the last few jobs. I don't want to see, you know, what you've been doing since 2005. You know, I want to know. So keep it relevant to the industry that you're looking to work in, and explain why. So if you've had 3 jobs in 3 years, it doesn't look good, but it's not a deal breaker, because, you know, people want real people to work for them, and they want honest people, they want trustworthy people, they want loyal people. And these are all the concerns that you have when you look at someone that job hops, as you say. Are they just trying to go side to side for a little bit more on the basic and just moving sideways, or actually do they have staying power? On the flip side to that though, do you ever find any prejudice, I'll call it prejudice because I guess the first one comes to my mind, against people that are journeymen, you know, that have the opposite problem?
Absolutely.
Because you want someone who's just gonna, like, maybe not have the ambition to want to, but so as an employer, it's good to have people that are loyal, but you also, attrition is healthy, isn't it? You want people that come in with new energy, new motivation, new ideas. And I would always, in my mind personally, think, right, I've got a 2-year plan. I'm going to maximize my energies into being successful in this company for 2 years, then I'm moving on. Hence, you know, within 5 years I got to where I am. So if they've got, be honest, explain that, explain the reasons why, and please, answer my question.
Do you know what it's there? I'm not even going to say it's unconscious. I think it is conscious. There is a lot of bias against a few subjects, which again the listeners will find out. One, people that started their own business. People don't want people that are entrepreneurial in their businesses. They really don't. When I see say for instance like yourself, if you'd have been a candidate 10 or 15 years ago and you'd worked for yourself for 2 years, people would have been worried to employ you, Joe, because they'd look at you and think, right, you've been working for yourself for 2 years, it hasn't worked out for whatever reason, he's just going to come in here and use this as a stepping stone to do it again. So unfortunately, if you
it could be a control thing as well. It's like, you know, is this guy going to be able to take leadership? Is he going to be able to take instructions if he's used to doing it on his own?
Very difficult.
You know, there is a bias there. I completely agree.
There is, and people, you know, unfortunately, when I speak to people that want jobs who've been working for themselves, I do say to them, I say, look, to get a job via a recruiter is going to be challenging, because you're better off trying to go direct, and so there's not a recruitment fee, because unfortunately, when they go through recruiters, they want square pegs, square holes. They don't want anything difficult. So that's one. And the other one, which I mentioned on the podcast before, is and it's rife in our industry anyway, is ageism. You know, you've got people that have been successful in either leadership roles, that they've been there for 10, 12 years, 14, 15 years, they may be 50 plus, still very, very...
Our last 2 hires are in their 50s, just to interrupt.
Really?
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I think they you know, candidates in that market bring a lot of experience, but there is I think a conscious bias that they either haven't got the energy or the inclination or the motivation to do it. And unfortunately, it's hard to call out with a client, because what will happen is with the client is they'll look at the CV and they'll be like, yeah, not quite right, Mark, for us, unfortunately. It's like, why? Yeah, it doesn't quite fit the mould. They'll just give you lip service or why they don't do it. And again, on the candidates that have been working for themselves, oh, who's their boss? Oh, and especially if the CV says MD or something like that, it's very, very difficult. So when people are asking me around it, I always say to them, I say, look, I will try and I'll speak to the client themselves. But if there's some conscious bias, unconscious, conscious, whatever you want to say, you're better off doing it direct. But unfortunately, it is rife in our industry.
Right,
but they're hopefully
what
now.
What about the journeyman thing though? Do you find if someone's been at an organisation for say like, I don't know, 8 years, even 5 years plus, do you have challenges placing those type of guys?
Not as much, I think. I think with those sort of candidates, they're still got a lot of experience to go to maybe a competitor or a similar industry. The only thing I will say with that is you'll see the same candidate do the rounds at a company. Example, I'm working at Pure Storage. Oh, I'm sick of this. Now I'm going to go and work at NetApp. I'm sick of that. Or I'm going to go and work at another storage vendor, saying the same message. Their credibility does tend to diminish over time, because they're just going to say to a similar company saying how wonderful that vendor is. But unfortunately, it's rife on our industry. But the conversations we're having now and around diversity, all these subjects can come up because there is lots of talented people out there looking for jobs who maybe have a slightly quirky background, or maybe ambitious, or they've tried to start their own company that can still add value. And I'm going to finish on this last question, Joe, because if Joe Castle at 22 come to Joe Castle now, and I'm going to say your age, unfortunately, at 34, a young Joe Castle, and said, I want a job, but I've got a 5-year plan that I'm probably going to leave Tecnologika and I want to start up, would you employ him?
A young Joe Castle would have never said that. A young Joe Castle would have told you what you want to hear. So, I want to have an Aston Martin in 2 years. You know, I want to, you know, that's what I would do, because that's what a sales rep wants to hear when they.
So you wouldn't be honest and authentic. You just.
Well, no. You adapt to your audience, and that's the art of selling as well, right? So I would, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not honest or authentic, because I'm a passionate person, right? And that's, you know, that's in my DNA. And you're gonna, if you don't like that, you know, then we're not. You're
not buying Joe Castle anyway.
Exactly, right? But you know, a young Joe Castle said that. I'm a realist. You know, I don't necessarily want to employ people for the rest of their lives. I want to create an environment that if they're happy, they can stay in. And some people, look, attrition is healthy. Let's remember that. You know, career progression is healthy. I think we spoke about this previously. There's only finite amount of positions in an organisation in leadership roles.
Absolutely.
So some people are going to want to move and create a new challenge. So, you know, being at a company for 3 years isn't a bad thing for me. And if a young Joe Castle said to me that, one thing I really didn't have, which I had to learn, was a mentor in business. So I literally had to make a shit ton of mistakes, excuse my French. And if a young Joe Castle came to me, I would be honoured to mentor that person. And I do have a mentoree within the business now. I think it's my duty to provide that, because I didn't feel like I had that one, right? And so a young Joe Castle came to me, I absolutely would hire him. And, you know, I think everyone would personally.
You know, and then that final point, Joe, you made a really good point, because everyone I've spoken to, from Mike Norris to Emma D'Souza to whoever, has always said to me the importance of mentors. Be your mentor. Yeah. Seek out mentors who are in the job that you want to go for, and seek out mentors outside the company to progress your career. Absolutely. So on that note, Joe, we'll call it a wrap. Thanks so much for your time.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Pleasure.